Imagine a quiet town where high school dreams were intertwined with young love, only to be shattered by a chilling act of violence. This isn't just another crime story. This is a tragic tale of Emma Walker, a story that will grip your heart and leave you searching for answers. Welcome back, everyone, to True Crime Desk. I'm Richard, and today's case is one that if you have a daughter, or a son for that matter, it's going to scare the crap out of you. And after listening to this case, there's no doubt in my mind you're going to find one of them and give them a big hug. And it's also going to make you think and pay more attention to the people they're hanging around with. It's real important to pay attention. So, with all that being said, let's get into the case. Emma's story begins like many other teenagers. A young girl navigating through the complexities of adolescence amidst the backdrop of high school life. Emma Jane Walker was born on March 20th, 2000 in Knoxville, Tennessee, to her parents Mark and Joe Walker, and she was only 16 years old at the time of her death. Emma attended Central High School in Knoxville, Tennessee. Now, Emma was an honor student and a cheerleader at Central High, and according to her friend Lauren Hutton, she took the cheerleading very seriously. Quote, she loved doing it. It was one of her passions. She loved leading, and she loved football games. She loved just being part of a crowd appeal. End quote. Now, according to all her friends and everybody that knew her, Emma was a vibrant teenager with bounding potential. As, to be honest with you, most teenagers are. They just don't realize their potential sometimes. Now, early that fall, Emma moved to the sideline where she caught the eye of an older student. Number 8 Central High's wide receiver and then junior, Riley Gale. Riley and Emma began dating in 2014 when he was a junior and she was a freshman. All right, I might be saying something controversial here, but to me it isn't. 16 is way too young to be having a boyfriend. It's an absolute no-go. Now, those of you who don't know, or maybe you do, is I have 3 boys and I raised them on my own. So I do have children. I know what it's like to raise kids. Now, I am going to acknowledge boys are different than girls. But I also know how I was at 16, because I was 16 once, believe it or not. And I know how my boys were at 16. And if I had a daughter at that age, absolutely would not be happening. Now, I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not saying they're bad parents. I'm just saying that that's the way I look at it. For me, it would have been an absolute no-go. But that's just my opinion. Raised by his mother and grandmother, Riley was a top student and loved to play video games. Friends described him as a jokester, not a classic jock type. He was a little nerdy on the side, said Zach Green, one of Emma's friends. A little to himself, from the outside looking in. You'd think he was just a normal guy. Now, when Emma's parents first met Riley, their impressions of him were very positive. Emma's mother, Jill, said, quote, the boy next door. He came in very polite, very nice at the beginning. He was just very likable. End quote. Her father, Mark, added, quote, we would let them have some supervised visitation. He could come over to the house. They would meet up after football games to eat and things like that. End quote. Now, at the very beginning, Emma's friends said that they seemed like the perfect couple. They're both very happy. They had all the social media pictures, they had paddleboarding pictures, and Emma even wrote one time, look how lucky I am. Keegan Lyle, one of Emma's best friends, said, quote, at first the relationship just seemed kind of normal. Riley just really didn't talk to us, her friends, a lot. But I was just like, oh, he's shy. It just seems normal. But then after a while was when we got kind of concerned. End quote. Now, Riley's friends became concerned when it was very apparent to them that Riley didn't want her hanging out with anybody but him. And I can tell you that right now, that's a bad sign. Anybody that you're with that wants to isolate you from your friends you've had in the past and wants you to be just with them and not hang out with anybody else, it's not a good sign. Anybody that really loves you is going to respect your boundaries, is going to want you to be with your friends and be happy. And if they want to isolate you to where you're just with them and listen to them and nobody else, it's not a good sign. Now, her friend Keegan said he became really controlling over her. And Laura Hutton also said that he was clingy and wouldn't let her do certain things. And after 2 years of being together, over the next 2 years, that is, they became just like seemingly like most high school loves that were on, that were off, back and forth. Now, that's a generality. Now, I don't think that every high school couple is that way, but it seems to happen. Young love. So if you had a high school relationship and yours wasn't like that, don't take offense. I didn't say every couple's like that. So it seems like a huge majority of couples, when you're in high school, you break it off, you're back together, on, off. It's just the way it goes. Like I said, believe it or not, I was a kid once, so I kind of know how it goes. Now, I can tell you right now, anybody that knows me knows that I have a big problem with being told what to do, where I can go, what I can say. And so that's just the way I am. That's the way I don't, it's disrespect, and people do not have the right to do that. So I can only imagine if I had a daughter and I found out this was going on, there'd be some serious conversations going on, I can tell you that. But that's just the way I look at it. Everybody's different. Jill Walker said Riley would always comment on what her daughter wore, telling her what she should and shouldn't wear, to the point where she said she ended up saying something to Emma about it. Laura Hutton said things became interesting between the couple. She said Riley started waiting for Emma outside the supermarket where she worked. He would just wait outside for hours, Hutton said. Lyle said friends told Emma that they didn't like the way Riley treated her, but she just kind of brushed it off. She did her own thing. Now, according to Emma's friends, Riley started becoming very aggressive. He started sending her Snapchat messages that said, "I hate you. I hate everything about you. You're the biggest bitch I've ever come into contact with." And one message in particular was a big concern to her mother. It said, "You're dead to me. I'll check the obituaries. Fuck you," Riley wrote. That's a bad sign. Now, I apologize for the language, but that's just the quote, and I don't mean to offend anybody. Jill, Emma's mom, said, quote, on one occasion she saw one that said, "I'll see your name in the obituaries." He wrote that to her. We questioned him about it, and he said, "I was just angry. And that's when I started to get many more red flags." End quote. Now, Emma's parents did the right thing, in my opinion. They banned Riley from their home. They took Emma's phone away from her, and they didn't want the two to communicate. But teenagers being teenagers, that didn't work. Now, Seth Armstrong, one of Emma's friends, said Riley gave her an iPad Touch, and she started texting over Wi-Fi. So like I said, when you have teenagers, if you've ever had teenagers, you tell the two to stay apart, they do the absolute opposite of that. But that's kids being kids, unfortunately. Now, I want to make this really clear. I'm not blaming anything that happened to Emma on her. She was immature. She shouldn't have been in a relationship, in my opinion, too young. He was older than her, and he took advantage of that. Now, we see this all the time with people that are grown up. We see the same type of thing. So for someone young like her who's never been through that, it's going to be even harder for her. So once again, I'm not blaming anything on her. It's not her fault that he did what he did. But it's definitely not easy at that age, that's for sure. Now, for every nasty message that Riley sent Emma, he would send another one saying he apologized and he loved her. And it's just an ongoing pattern. This is nothing new. This happens all the time. They say nasty things. They might even hit you in some occasions, and then they'll say they're sorry, it never happened again. It's just a cycle, goes over and over again. This is not a good sign, and it's not unusual in these situations. Now, real quick, before I go any further, I don't want to be getting into comments about you're not a psychologist, you're not a this, that. No, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a doctor. I'm a human being. I'm 57 years old come July, and I have life experience. So that's my degree right there, is living life. So I've went through these things. We've all gone through these things. We've known people that are going through these things. So I'm entitled to give my opinion based on my life and based on life in general. So I don't have to be a doctor. I don't have to be a psychologist to know when these things are wrong. When someone is controlling you, telling you what to do, where to go, and who to talk to, and saying nasty things to you, it is not acceptable. And you don't have to be a doctor to know that's wrong. Now, by the fall of 2016, Riley and Emma were still dating. And at this point, Riley had graduated and he was 18 years old. Now, Emma was a junior in high school, but their relationship was still not very good. They're still fighting, and they're still together, even though her parents don't want them to. And parents want them to stay apart, but they're still together at this point. Now, around Halloween that same year, Emma's parents decided to ground her and not allow her to leave the house other than to go to school and the cheerleading practice. And once again, I agree. I think her parents are doing absolutely the right thing. I think they're they're good parents and they're paying attention to her and what's happening, and they're trying to make sure that she's safe. I know that sounds like a given. You'd think that that's an automatic when it comes to parenting, but you'd be surprised nowadays. But in this case, she had some really good parents, that's for sure. Now, it got to the point where they started monitoring everything she did and everywhere she went. And to their surprise, it seemed to work. Mark Walker said, quote, "She did become like her old self again. She would come out of her room, eat dinner with us, and socialize with us." End quote. Now, Emma texted her friend Keegan and told her that her and Riley were done for good. She just came to realize that she deserved better, Keegan said. And we're all like, yes, finally, it happened. We're like, what we've all been waiting for. But of course, Riley didn't take the breakup well. While he was in his dorm room at college, he took a bunch of Vicodin and washed it down with alcohol in an attempt at self-harm. Now, Riley's friends noticed his mood change. One of his friends, Alex McCarty, said that he would just mope around and he would say things like, "Oh, well, I'm so depressed," and he doesn't want to do anything. And it was just a cry out for help. So his friends did notice that he was definitely depressed, that's for sure. Then on Friday, November 18, 2016, Emma was allowed to attend a gathering at her friend's house. Around 11:30 p.m. that night, her friend and her classmate, Zach Green, arrived at the house where they were hanging out. Emma told Zach that she had been receiving strange messages from a number she didn't recognize. Now, she's like, "Zach, I've been getting these weird text messages that say, 'Come outside if you don't want to see your loved ones hurt.'" And so she showed Zach her phone and some of the weird text. Now, in the text, it said, "Go to your car with your keys." It said, "Come alone." And it says, "I have someone you love, and if you don't comply, I'm going to hurt them." Now, those are pretty weird. That's for sure. Zach said that Emma thought that these texts were coming from one of Riley's friends playing a prank on her, and that she had text back that she's going to call the police. Now, the text, however, became more menacing, according to Zach. Now, one text said, "If you want to hear him screaming and crying, give him a call." Now, Zach said Emma started begging him for help until he said eventually she came out and said, "Zach, listen." They said they dropped Riley outside. Zach and Emma went outside, and sure enough, he said they found a body laying face down in a ditch near the house. Under the glow from the streetlights, he said, they could see that it was Riley. We finally get to him, and he's pulling his head up, kind of has this confused face on, Zach said. Emma's like, "Why are you here?" He's like, "I don't know what happened. I don't know how I got here. I've been kidnapped. Someone dropped me off here. I don't know what happened. Where am I? How did I get here?" Holding his head like he'd been hit upside the head, kind of. It was just very weird. Emma was immediately uneasy, Zach said, and she didn't really know what to think. She's just like, "We just broke up. Leave me alone." Now, seemingly dejected, Riley walked off down the street alone. He then called his friend Noah Walton and told him that he had been kidnapped. But Noah didn't believe a word he said. Now, according to Noah, he said he sounded like he'd been crying and that he was fatigued. He basically told him that these people knocked him out, took his car, and threw him in a van, and he didn't know where he was. Now, Noah also said that Riley told him not to call 911 and report the alleged incident. He was just like, "No cops, no cops," Noah said. Now, none of Emma's friends contacted the authorities about the alleged kidnapping that happened that night. The following morning, Emma went home, but she texted a friend saying, "A stranger is at my doorstep." Now, Emma's text read, "I'm home alone and somebody in black is walking up and down my street and keeps ringing my doorbell over and over again." Emma's text continued, adding, "I thought I was going to die." So Emma texts Riley saying, "I hate you, but I need you right now. I'm coming. I'm speeding. I'll be there in a minute," Riley texts back. Now, when Emma failed to meet up with her mother that morning as planned, Jill returned home and found her daughter and Riley in the front yard. Now, Jill said her first thoughts were, "You got to be kidding me. You know you're not allowed here." Quote, "So I just get out and ask him to leave politely. And he said, 'No, I'm here to help. I'm making sure Emma's okay. And he's trying to talk to me. And I just said, you know you're not allowed. You need to leave.' And he did leave." End quote. Now, Emma was visibly shaken and thought it might have been a burglar or maybe even a stalker. Jill, however, wasn't convinced. Now, I told Emma, "Don't you think it's a little odd that Riley was involved or appeared at both events?" And she said, "No, it wasn't him, Mom. It wasn't him." Now, Jill believed that Riley was trying to get her daughter's attention and that he was going way overboard to do it. So they were worried about her. So the next day, they literally followed her to work and followed her home to make sure that she was safe. Now, by Sunday night, everything seemed back to normal. Emma was at home. She texted her friend Keegan about a homework assignment, and then she went to bed about midnight. A little after 6 a.m., on November 21st, 2016, Jill went to Emma's room but couldn't wake her up. Quote, I said her name. I didn't hear anything. I bumped her leg. Didn't hear anything. And then looked at her face and realized and checked for her pulse. And I didn't find anything. I don't remember a whole lot from that. I know I called 911. End quote. I just tried waking my daughter for school, Jill told the 911 operator. She's just 16. You said she's non-responsive? The 911 operator asked. Yeah, Jill said sobbingly. Now, police were sent to the Walker house where Knox County Sheriff's Deputy Nikki Bowles, the lead forensic technician on the case, said originally she thought it was a self-harm case. Now, Bowles, when she first got there, she said she took photographs of the outside of the residence and then photographs of the inside of the residence. And then she happened to notice on the wall that it looked like a bullet hole. And then when she noticed it was, that's when she realized that it was not a case of self-harm. When Knoxville County Sheriff's Lieutenant Alan Merritt arrived on the scene, he said he started looking outside of the house and he noticed a small bullet hole in a wall that was about shoulder high. It's just a small bullet hole, you know? About the size of a ballpoint ink pen, he said. He then located 2 shell cases outside the home, so he knew 2 shots had been fired. Walking around the outside of the house, he eventually found a second bullet hole on a different side of the house at approximately the same height as the first. That told the investigators that the 2 shots were more than likely fired by the same suspect. All right, just a quick note. Those of you who have a keen ear, you're going to notice that I said case, not casing. Now, casing is not a correct term. It's not a thing. It's case or cases. Case singular, cases plural. Now, you're going to hear that casing everywhere because everybody's an expert. And you hear it from court, YouTube channels, you hear it on CSI. It's a Hollywood thing. Casing is not a correct term. Now, those of you who don't know, I'm a gunsmith. And it might not seem like a lot, but it drives me nuts when I keep hearing that. When they keep saying casing, casing, casing. It's not correct. So now that you know, you're going to hear it, you're going to notice it. It's case or cases. All right? I know, like I said, it doesn't seem like a big deal to most people, but to me, it just drives me nuts because if you're going to talk about stuff, especially when it comes to firearms, that's a big thing for me, you should kind of do a little bit of research and know what you're talking about. All right? So let's move on. Now, Emma, who was only 16 years old and was a brilliant and vibrant teenager, had been K'd by a shot to the head. They found 2 projectiles, or bullets, as people like to call them. One bullet hit her behind the left ear, and the other one had lodged in a pillow. And they had been fired from the outside of the house. So I don't know if you want to call that a lucky shot. In her case, it was unlucky, but very strange nevertheless. She's just laying in her bed, sleeping, minding her own business, and somebody thinks they have the right to do that. This kind of stuff has to stop. Now, after discovering all that, one of the detectives came over to Jill and her husband and told them that they have to leave the residence. So obviously, it turned to a crime scene at that point. Jill said, quote, they were wrapping tape around our house and walking around the outside, but we still had no idea what had happened to her. End quote. Now, when police started investigating Emma's friends and family that day, Merritt said that the same name kept popping up. Everybody kept giving him the same name, Riley Gall, because of the relationship that they had had and the way he had threatened her in the past. So that's when the detectives first heard the name, Riley Gall. Now, Riley took to social media to mourn Emma, posting a series of lengthy tweets and Facebook posts. In one tweet, he wrote, rest easy now, sweetheart. I love you forever and always. Emma's friends and family were devastated. The night of her death, they held a candlelight vigil at Central High, and her fellow cheerleaders raised balloons in her memory at that week's Bobcat football game. Now, Riley's friends became concerned with him. So following the death of Emma, they told detective a secret that Riley had shared with his friend Alex McCarty the day after Riley's alleged kidnapping. He told him that he feared for his life, so he stole his grandmother's gun, and he showed it to him, Alex said. Alex said, I was worried, and he assured me over and over again that he was the farthest thing from self-harming himself. He was just scared that those people that were going after him went out and got Emma. Now, Alex also told detectives that Riley came up to him and asked him how you get fingerprints off a gun. He said he was asking for his roommate. Same old story, asking for somebody else. And I told him, obviously not. I have no idea, not to ask me that again. And he said, I know it's weird. I just thought I would ask. Now, detectives brought Riley in for questioning on Monday morning and asked him about his whereabouts for the previous 72 hours. Riley said he thought he would spend Friday at his friend Noah Walton's house. During his 2-hour police interrogation, Riley didn't refer to Emma by name, only calling her the girl. The girl, she texted me, Riley told detective. Which girl? Merritt said. The one that passed away, Riley said. When I first met him, I thought he might have been a grieving boyfriend, Detective James Hertz said. When we got him in the interrogation room and sat down, I felt like there was a dark side. Riley told detectives that he was trying to speak to Emma that weekend, but she wouldn't engage with him. But she said that if he would help her with a paper, that he would talk to her. So he said he borrowed one of his friend's phones on Sunday, and he gave her a phone call. He said the phone call didn't go well, and she told him a bunch of cruel stuff, and she blocked his friend's number. After that, Riley said he drove over to his grandmother's house and stayed there briefly and then went back to college. Once there, he said he sat in his car for 2 or 3 hours and cried over the breakup with Emma. But as the detectives noticed it, he had no emotion whatsoever. He just was emotionless, I guess you'd say. Now later, Detective Merritt said his interview was possibly the most disconnected. It almost seemed rehearsed, deliberate. Now at this point, detectives said they already knew from Alex Bacardi that Riley had shown him his grandmother's gun. Now Riley's grandmother kept her gun in her car, and it was reported to be a 9mm and went missing prior to their interrogation. Now detectives asked Riley about the gun, and he told them he didn't know where it was, and he denied also asking his friend how to get fingerprints off a firearm. And then the detectives asked him to see his cell phone, and Riley asked him if he was a suspect. Should you be? The detectives responded, but Riley continued to deny having anything to do with Emma's death. Now, when Riley left the police department, Alex started receiving texts telling him not to talk to the police. His other friend Noah said that he was on edge. Now, if Riley was anything like Alex and Noah, then this would never happen because Alex and Noah are two really good kids. And as you're going to see coming up, their parents should be very proud of them for what they did. They're stand-up boys, or men for that matter. Thinking Riley was lying to authorities, Noah and Alex then collaborated with police to help lay a trap. On Tuesday night, just one day after Emma's murder, detectives wired the two teens up with microphones and a transmitter where police could listen in, and a video camera hidden in a key fob, and planned out a sting operation to recover the potential murder weapon. Those two young men contacted us and asked if they could help us get what they believed to be the murder weapon back, Merritt said. Obviously, there are concerns for their safety. We went over all that with them, and they were still adamant, very adamant, that they wanted to do this. They understood the dangers and the concerns, but they wanted to do it. Now, the operation was a success, and Riley was arrested. In addition to the gun, they recovered what they believed to be a treasure trove of evidence. They found gloves, black clothing, and everything they think that the person was wearing. So they believe that he was the same person that was walking up and down her street and knocking on her door. They believe that that was Riley. And just like in the case I did before this, the Russell Williams case, if you've seen that one, the police work in this case was superb. At his trial in May 2018, Riley's defense team claimed that he wasn't trying to kill Emma. He was just trying to scare her so she'd come run to him and talk to him so he can be like her big hero or savior. And that, to be honest with you, that's not a bad defense because if you were trying to case somebody, you wouldn't shoot through a wall because the odds of hitting somebody in the head like he did is really hard. So I kind of believe that that's what he was trying to do. I mean, I kind of believe that a little bit, but it doesn't really matter. He still fired the firearm. He still ended up K-ing her. And so the end result is the same. So it doesn't really matter whether he meant to. He did it. He never intended to cause her harm. He never intended to cause her death, Wesley Stone, Riley's attorney, said. Quote, consistent with her reaching out to Riley regarding the events of Saturday morning, he was attempting to get her to ask him for help again, sort of to be her protector. It's been in his heart. It's been in his mind. It's been in just everything about him, every day for the rest of his life. Whatever that may be, he would just have to live with that reality. End quote. Well, he wouldn't have had to be her protector if he would have treated her decent to begin with. They would have still been dating. So he treated her like crap, pushed her away, and then he claims he wants to be her protector. So try treating it decent to begin with, and it wouldn't be a problem. So cry me a river. Stone also said that Riley denied being the mystery man dressed in black, and that's all BS. We know it was him. After 5 hours of deliberation, the jury found Riley, now 19, guilty of first-degree murder, as well as stalking, threatening, reckless endangerment, and being in possession of a firearm during a felony. At his sentencing hearing today, Riley, who did not speak during the trial, apologized to the Walkers for killing their daughter, but stuck by his defense that it was an accidental shooting. I'm sorry I took Emma away from you, that I robbed you of the experience of watching your daughter grow up, Riley said in court. What I can do is tell the truth about that night. I wanted to scare her. I never meant to take Emma's life. Again, I'm sorry. Well, that was a nice speech. He should get into politics, where all the king of BSers are. Now, in the state of Tennessee, a first-degree murder conviction carries an automatic life sentence. All right, this is the part of the case where I tell you what I think and give you my opinion. Now, first and foremost, I think he's guilty, and I think he's where he belongs. But at the same token, I don't think he went over there to K her. I think he went over there to scare her, because there's easier ways to do that. Now, I didn't mention that in the video, that they said that he knew where her bed was and where her head would be, but still, you're shooting through the wall, so it's a real low possibility you're going to actually hit somebody. But it doesn't really matter whether he went over there and intended to K her or not. He had the firearm. He had used it recklessly. He pulled the trigger. So he's ultimately responsible. So he's where he belongs. So that's my opinion, and that's what I think. So let me know what you guys think. I want to know in the comments, am I wrong? Am I right? Did he intend to do it? Did he not intend to do it? Am I wrong about her having a boyfriend at a young age? You think it's okay at 16? I personally don't. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm really interested in what you guys think, and I want to know what you guys have to say. With justice served for Emma Walker's death, Jill Walker hopes what happened to her daughter can serve as a warning to others who may be in these dangerous relationships. Quote, if your boyfriend or girlfriend is telling you you can't go there, or what to wear, or who to hang out with, or who to talk to, it's not okay. I think when they become quiet and withdrawn, it's a big sign too. It's not just bruising, it's emotional and controlling. End quote. Well said. She really had some good parents, that's for sure. And I really feel sorry for them, and I'm sorry for their loss. Since her death, Emma Walker's family has tried to keep her legacy alive. Her mother said she loved animals and always wanted to be an NICU nurse. So the family has gotten a dog park and an NICU patient room at East Tennessee Children's Hospital named after her. Emma's mom said, quote, it's all things that are part of Emma, and it all means something. I hope that people remember her for being kind to others. End quote. So as we think of Emma, we should always remember to choose love and compassion over hate and negativity. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this case. I know this was a tough one. It's always tough when it involves kids. So let me know what you think in the comments. And I appreciate you watching. Appreciate you listening. And until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and remember to always mind your surroundings. Bye.